Saxon Algebra 1, Lesson 9. Greetings, students. Welcome to the beginning of Math 4, Week 4, rather, of our math year. Today's topic is review. We're going to continue to review for a couple more weeks now, so don't be alarmed or depressed about that. It's fun. It's easy. We're talking about multiplying and dividing signed numbers, but before we jump into that, we want to review what we already know about adding and subtracting signed numbers. Now, adding and subtracting undo each other, right? You can undo addition by subtracting. You can undo subtracting by adding. We call those inverse operations. And the nice thing about them is that when we're dealing with positive and negative numbers, they go by the same rules. That's what's great about them. When we're adding and subtracting is when we're dealing with the whole and the ladder and that whole concept, right? We've been working on this for the past couple lessons. The ladder works when we're adding and subtracting, and the rules that we have are fairly simple. If you're combining two positive numbers, if you're adding or subtracting two positive numbers, you know that your answer is going to be positive. If you're dealing with two negative numbers, adding them or subtracting them, you know that your result is going to be negative, right? If they're the same to start with, they're going to end up with the same one. It's fairly easy to remember. The more confusing thing comes when we're mixing positives and negatives. And we've talked about this, and we know that the answer is going to end up being the sign of the greater number. Okay, that's a rule you can count on. You look at these two numbers, you look at which one is the greater number in and of itself. I could say the absolute value of that number, but that gets kind of mathy and weird. But just look at the number, don't worry about the sign. Whichever sign goes with the greater number, that's the sign your answer will be. All right? That's one set of rules. Now let's talk about the rules for multiplying and dividing. They're kind of different, but kind of the same. Again, multiplying and dividing are also inverse operations. They undo each other. They go together. And again, if we have a positive times a positive or a positive divided by a positive, our answer will be positive. I mean, that makes sense. That's like what you learned in 4th grade without knowing it, is that your answers are positive. If you have two negatives, ready? Here comes a little mind blower. Your answer will be positive. Remember that. Here's our little rule of thumb. Two minus signs go together to make a plus. All right, and we can kind of imagine that as two sticks we pick up and we put together to make into a plus sign, right? Toothpicks, pick-up sticks, straws, whatever you want to visualize that as. Just imagine yourself picking them up and laying them in that shape, and it'll help you remember the rules. So these are the rules when the signs match. But what about when the signs don't match? If we have a positive and negative, that yields a negative. If we put them in the other order, it works the same way. Okay, the rule here, this is where signs don't match. The way that we can do this is we count the negatives. This is the rule for multiplying and dividing, okay? count the negative signs. In the first part of your problem. If it's an odd number, the result is negative. If it's an even number, it's positive. Right? We're going to practice this a whole bunch. But it's quite straightforward and easy to remember. You're simply saying if there's two negatives, we make it a positive. All right, let's do a couple problems just to practice. And interestingly, John doesn't have any proper examples in this lesson. But let's do one of each type. Okay, so here's the first type. 12 divided by 4. It's dividing. They're both positive numbers, so we know our answer will be positive. It's just 3. Easy. And then let's do another one with 2 negatives. We can just use the same numbers over and over and flip the signs around. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is positive 3. The 2 negatives go together to make a positive. What about this one? Okay, we know the number's 3. We have 1 negative and 1 positive. So we count the number of negatives, 1. That's an odd number, so that means our answer is negative. Okay, and that's what we have here. Count the number of negative signs. We have 2. That's an even number, so we know our answer is positive. And our last one would be like so. 12 divided by negative 4, well, we know that number is 3. We count the negatives, there's 1, so we know our answer has 1. All right? So the rules are very different when we're multiplying and dividing assigned numbers than they are when they're positive. Here we're on the ladder. Here we're counting minus signs, right? If you have an odd number of minus signs, it's a negative. If you have an even number, it's positive. Remember, this rule fits within this rule. 2 minus signs go together. This is 2 ways of saying the same thing. So don't worry that I'm confusing you because this all goes together. All right, that's the end of lesson 9. And the practice problems look just like this, where you've got simple multiplication and division numbers problems. And the number part is easy. There's no trick to that. It's just a question of remembering this rule. Okay, good luck. Lesson 9 is now complete. Yay, thank you, goodbye.